It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. I've had the opportunity for the last couple of minutes to visit with him and talk about the extraordinary things that he's doing at the university level now to increase retention of students at the university level. And you can get a scholarship and you can go, but sometimes, particularly the bigger the school is, sometimes you'll feel unsupported. And so he's involved with programs that are outreach programs that help young people feel connected once they get to college, and then they have a better chance of doing what? Completing it, getting out of there with a degree, because that is the ultimate goal. He is a former Houston Parks and Recreation Department participant, and so we talk about legacy, the circle. He started in Parks and Rec. He practically grew up at the Judson Robinson Junior Community Center, and he is a great example of what hard work and positive relationship with peers, with faculty, and what the staff can accomplish. He has an undergraduate degree in communications from the University of Texas San Antonio, and a master's in educational leadership with a concentration in higher education administration. So I want you to join with me in welcoming to the stage our guest speaker today, Mr. Curtis Lee Wilkins, Jr.
Well, thank you, Darryl, for that great introduction. First and foremost, what I want to do is say thank you to the Houston Parks and Recreation staff and administration for allowing me to speak here today. It's an honor and a privilege to be here and to share some wisdom with the athletes-seeking knowledge participants, as well as those who will be receiving the scholarship awards and some of the other awards. Just to share a little bit about myself, I don't want to share too much because this isn't about me. But I did grow up within the Houston Parks and Recreation system, specifically at Judson Robinson University, Judson Robinson Community Center. Judson Robinson Community Center, where my mom, who's right here in the white actually, who's here, she worked there for about 5 years, so she kept us pretty active. So I played every sport, from basketball to football, track, indoor soccer, field hockey, pretty much, did it all. I also attended the after-school programs, the summer programs, and everything they had to offer from trips and camps and those things. So my sports foundation really started there. And I played sports my entire life up until the point where I got about halfway through high school, and I kind of got to a point where I wanted to be cool, I guess you could say. Wanted to fit in and sort of do what everybody else was doing. So I actually stopped playing sports, and I was really doing what those I hung around with, what they were doing, which didn't really involve going to class. I did a lot of skipping class. Never studied for tests or really did homework, and I barely made it through high school. And I never thought about college, even though I had a sister that was at Baylor University my 11th and 12th grade year of high school. It wasn't until my best friend's cousin, who's now my fraternity brother actually, it wasn't until he came down for the holiday break and he was telling us about college. He said, man, the parties are crazy. Man, the girls, all the intramural sports. So I was like, okay, well, let me see what college is about. So I go home and I look up UTSA and they had a 99% acceptance rate. And I remember going, wait a minute, 99%? I should be able to get in. So I applied and I got in. And long story short, it changed my life. And that was mainly due to the relationships I built and the student involvement I was a part of. So that was really my guiding force behind graduating in 4 years and pursuing my master's degree. So what I've done is I haven't framed this speech to talk about me, because that's the last thing I want to do. But I've framed this speech in a way that I can give some insight as to my academic journey and my experiences, and hope that it would allow you to take some of those tools with you in your journey to be successful. So what I want to do real quick before I get into my speech is I want to break the ice just a little bit. All right, I want you guys to do too much. I want you guys to stand up or anything like that. But I need some energy, okay? So what I want to do is when I say give me one clap, I want everybody to give me one clap. When I say give me two claps, I want everybody to give me two claps. When I say give me three claps, I want everybody to give me three claps. You can only clap when I say give me, okay? If I don't say give me, don't clap. Everybody's ready? All right, and make sure you send the energy with the claps, okay? All right, everybody's ready. All right. One clap. All ready. All right, let's try this again. One clap. Give me one clap. Give me two claps. Give me two claps. Give me one clap. Give me three claps. One clap. So I framed this speech, and it's been titled by me as the 3 M's to fulfilling your fullest potential. And this is if you're in middle school, high school, if you're embarking on a college experience, or if you're relating this to the real world, okay? And unfortunately, one of those M's is not money, so I'm sorry about that. But the first M for fulfilling your fullest potential is meaning. What is your why? What is your purpose? What is your reason behind doing what you do? If I were to go around this room and ask every single person what their meaning was, what their why was, what their purpose is, what their reason is behind what they do, I'm sure I would get a lot of answers. But I'm not sure if I would get a lot of real, personal, meaningful answers. You see, a lot of times, we sort of just go with the flow and we let things happen. We take upon certain jobs and opportunities just because they present themselves in front of us. Or sometimes we're forced into those opportunities. The thing with that is, if we don't have meaning behind what we do, what is our purpose for doing it? And relating this to the target audience today, if I went to your schools or the colleges that you are about to embark on, and I asked every single student what their purpose is, what their reason is behind being in school and doing what they do, half of those students, or probably more than half, wouldn't have a clue. They would have answers, but they probably wouldn't be real, personal, meaningful answers. You see, nowadays we preach to college and we preach to students that you have to go to college in order to be successful and establish a career. It's sort of ingrained in our society today. Well, and not to mention that most jobs are actually requiring that you have a college degree, but a lot of them starting to require that graduate degree. But that's what we teach. We say you must go to college in order to be successful. As a result, there are a lot of students going to college just because it's what their parents have told them to do. Just because it's what we preach to them to do in order to be successful. You must go to college. So there's a lot of students in college who are simply just going through the motions, is what I call it, with no meaning. And going to college is a good thing, don't get me wrong. But I can count the amount of students who I came into college with my freshman year, who I built strong relationships with, who actually graduated with me in 4 years on time on one finger, or one hand, I'm sorry. And I don't even need my entire hand. But I can count the amount of students using all of my hands or fingers, all of my toes, and probably half of this room's fingers and toes to equal the amount of students who I know got kicked out of college or who dropped out of college. They had no meaning. If your only purpose for going to college and pursuing an education is because it's what mom or dad said you're supposed to do, or because that's just what people do after high school, or because you have nothing else to do, you won't make it through college. Of course, college is pretty much about learning about yourself and experimenting. So you can find that meaning within college, of course. But there has to be an awareness that we need meaning in our lives in order to make them worthwhile. When I was an orientation leader at UTSA, I worked with incoming students. And so I was in charge of sort of helping them transition to university. And at the end of the summer, actually at the end of the first semester, the fall semester, one of my students came up to me. She was running me down actually in the hallway, and she said, "Hey Curtis, hey, I've been looking for you." I said, "Hey, well, what's going on? How are things going? How was your semester?" She said her semester was great. She said she ended up with a 3.5 GPA, and she did well. She said it was all because of you. I stepped back and said, no, that wasn't me. You did well on those tests. You were the one who put that time and effort in. That has nothing to do with me. She said, well, Yeah. But I was a CAP student. And CAP students are those students who are provisionally admitted to UT Austin, and then they have to go to one of the UT system schools for a little while, meet certain guidelines, and then they can go transfer over to UT Austin. So she said I was a CAP student, and I had a negative attitude about coming to UTSA, and I definitely didn't want to go to orientation. She said, by the end of orientation, you changed my entire perspective on coming to UTSA. She said she was excited about coming to UTSA, and she decided not to pursue the CAP program anymore, and she said I was the reason behind it. That gave me meaning for being in orientation. That gave me meaning for life. It was that conversation that prompted me to want to pursue a career in higher education. And ultimately, that's the reason why I stand before you today. So I pose a question to the audience today. What is your meaning? The second M for fulfilling your fullest potential is motivation. What keeps you going? What encourages you? What inspires you? Now, motivation does not relate to meaning. Motivation adds to meaning. It gives us encouragement and inspiration to do what we do and fulfill that meaning. And motivation can be internal or it can be external, right? We can have inner motivation or we can have some type of outside motivation from some outer source. Maybe you want to provide for the kids that you're raising. Or maybe you want to make mom and dad proud or your friends and family members proud. That's external motivation, right? Which really was the thing that guided me, because I graduated high school with a 2.2 GPA. Never even thought about going to college. My first year, I remember studying for the first test in my entire life. And I thought about my family. My grandfather's dying wish was to see all his grandkids graduate college before he passed away. And he wasn't able to do that. But I remember studying for that first test and thinking about that. And I got an 80 on that test, by the way. But that was the first test I've ever studied for in my entire life. Internal motivation is maybe it's something you're challenging yourself to do, or maybe a goal that you're setting out to do. All right? How many people have heard of Michael Jordan? Everybody, yeah, of course, right? One of the greatest players of all time, if not the greatest. How many people knew Michael Jordan was cut from his varsity team his sophomore year in high school? Okay, a couple. The greatest player ever to play the game cut in high school from the varsity team. Michael Jordan went home and cried to his mama. But that fueled him. That gave him motivation internally. And those coaches was the external motivation. We need motivation. So I pose a question, a second question. What is your motivation? The third M to fulfilling your fullest potential is mindset. You are the sum total of your thoughts. And I really believe that drives home what I mean by mindset. Choosing your mind, setting your mind is a choice. Your attitude is a choice. We all have the ability to think, right? We all have the ability to think and have thoughts. And thinking is really just, we do it unconsciously. Sometimes we don't even necessarily think about what we're thinking about. We just think, right? We have sort of this default setting, I call it. The default setting. It's just the first thought that pops up to your head, all right? On the way over here in traffic. Wow, traffic is bad. Where's everybody going? I have places to be. I have things to do. I have people to see. Oh my God, what does she have on? Look at her hair. Those are thoughts, right? What we're sometimes unaware of is that we have the ability to choose our thoughts and how we perceive and make meaning to those thoughts. It's a choice. Couldn't my time in traffic be time for me to go over my speech that I'll be presenting today? Couldn't that time in traffic be an opportunity for me to go over a to-do list that I need to get done for me? Couldn't that lady have just gotten off an 8-hour job, pick up her kids at the community center after school program, work a second job, and finally get to where she's supposed to be, and she didn't have time to fix herself up. We can control our thoughts. In order to be successful, you must choose your mindset. You must choose your attitude. Now, there's a story I want to share, and then I'll take my seat. But in a book that I read called Think and Grow Rich: A Black Choice, it was actually a sequel to Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. But Think and Grow Rich: A Black Choice by Dennis Kimbrough. And some of you guys may have heard this story online before, but I read it in a book, and it talks about an African warrior who goes to visit with an African guru, or in the book it calls him an African sage. And so the warrior walks up on the guru and he says, "I heard you're the man to talk to about living a life of success and a life of happiness." The guru takes a look at the warrior. He stands up, he grabs the warrior by the hand, and he proceeds to walk to a lake, which is right next to his hut. They get to the lake, and they walk in the lake, and the water gets to the warrior's ankles, to his knees, to his waist, and then it gets up under his chin. He looks back at the guru, but the guru's silent. He's not saying a word. So they proceed, and next thing you know, he's fully submerged underwater. The guru holds him down for a second, turns him around, brings him back to shore, and they walk back to the hut in total silence. They get back to the hut, and the guru asks the warrior, after some thought-provoking moments, he says, "What was your greatest desire when you were underwater?" The warrior looks at the guru and he says, "Well, you fool, I wanted to breathe. That was my greatest desire." The guru looks back at the warrior and says, "When you want to succeed, as bad as you want to breathe, then you will be successful." Now, I don't know how many people have had, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, but I have asthma. And I grew up playing sports with asthma, and I've had a lot of asthma attacks, a lot. My mama's made a lot of trips driving fast to get me to my inhaler that I left at home. But when the only thing on your mind when you're wheezing and having shortness of breath is breathing freshly, and being able to breathe easily, you'll do anything. And the same thing goes for those who play sports. When you're running up and down the court, when you're running up and down the field and you're dead tired, and you're waiting on the coach to call that timeout so you can get to that water or get to that Gatorade, and you finally get there, and you replenish yourself, you're re-energized, you're ready. Can you imagine if the desire to breathe was transferred to the desire to succeed? We take breathing for granted. It's not until we're having trouble breathing or we're having difficulties breathing that we appreciate breathing and how vital it is to everyday life. So I pose a question, a final question as well as a challenge to the audience today. What are your 3 M's to fulfilling your fullest potential? And no, one of those M's is not money. Let me get 1 clap. Let me get 2 claps. Let me get 3 claps. All right, thank you very much, Houston Parks and Recreation. Congratulations to the participants. Thank you very much.